Begin the conversation this morning in the Gambia, where the Gambian Parliament has assigned its Select Committee on Health, Disaster and Humanitarian Relief to investigate the deaths of more than 80 children after taking Indian manufactured cough syrup. This news came during an extraordinary session about the deaths, with the committee expected to come up with findings and present it to Parliament on the 30th of November.
It is tasked with investigating the causes and the impact of the acute kidney injuries that killed the children after taking the medicine, the potential culpability of the suspected importer and pharmacy linked to the syrups, and other issues regarding legal and regulatory framework. And over time, we, of course, when this broke, we did speak about it and share the little details here and there, that the company that was even producing and importing these drugs, I believe either of both had been cautioned in the past and also been suspended in other countries, from making drugs or from importing drugs into the country. But I'm not sure who got it wrong either in Zambia or in India. It's an Indian company.
Yes.
I'm not sure who got it wrong in this case or where, the investigation needs to start from properly.
I think part of the conversation centered around the drug regulatory bodies in Gambia and how they even allow such medication filter into the system. So that's one question that a lot of people have been asking. Now, the government has also said that they are launching an outreach to investigate what's going on and how this was even allowed to happen in the first place. Over 70 children dead because of this cough syrup. But the individuals or the victims, the parents of the victims, have outrightly rejected the government's help, saying that they want independent investigation. So this also raises an eyebrow, begs the question, why are they rejecting it? Is it that on the one hand, they do not trust that the government will do a fair and thorough investigation? Or is it a situation of basically saying the party cannot, be a judge in his own cause? Maybe because the government is sort of involved in this, you should have regulated to ensure that this didn't get into the country in the first place. So are you probably the one also doing the investigation? Maybe those are the concerns, but
and they are legitimate concerns, and anybody would probably would have the same thoughts. But it brings us back once again, and this unfortunately happens a lot with, I dare to say, developing nations. Where you get to see that it's very likely that investigations like this might be thwarted. And you would never really get to see the value for human life. No other country in the world, and in other countries in the world, when 70 children are dead, heads will have to roll. People would have to lose their jobs for failure at some level or the other. And it's going to be in the Ministry of Health, in their customs, in their whichever person was responsible here or has failed here. Heads will roll. So we're hoping that the Gambia understands the severity of the situation and how much the world is looking at them to see what they will do in this case. And also, if these drugs were also moved to other African countries, neighboring African countries maybe, or any other places that buy their drugs from these same importers from India, these are things that need to be spoken about.
Wow.
We have joining us this morning, Mr. Sana Kamara. Good morning, Mr. Kamara. Can you hear us? Mr. Kamara, can you hear us? Good morning.
I can hear you. I'm struggling to hear you, definitely.
All right. Thanks for joining us. I want us to get into it. Can you tell us why most of the parents of the victims have rejected the government's outreach and they're insisting on an independent investigation instead?
The Parliament convened yesterday. It was an extraordinary session where the opposition members of the Parliament petitioned the Speaker for the Minister of Health to appear before them and clarify certain issues. I think it was the ruling party MPs who did not sign this petition, but on the floor of the House, it was unanimous that the entire Parliament agreed that the Parliament should continue an investigation that was started by the Select Committee on Health. And yesterday it was dramatic as some member, at least one of the members, was asked to leave because of certain comments they had over this matter. So it's a really emotional matter for the state as well as for the citizens. because this is about lives of the kids that they've been lost, that have been lost, as well as also parliamentarians feeling obligated to do something about it. Already we've learned that the police are on an inquiry. The government has announced a commission of inquiry, and there is also a parliamentary inquiry that is already going on. So yesterday was an opportunity for the minister to come and clarify certain issues. But at the end of it all, they believe that they should allow the committee to continue the investigations and make some recommendations for the parliament for action.
You've just spoken about the minister. Let's talk about him a bit. Health Minister Lamin Samatere is being pressured to resign to pave the way for a smooth investigation and to restore confidence in the country's health sector. Unfortunately, we are seeing that he's ignoring these calls, saying that his resignation will not change anything. What effect is, the calls for the resignation going to have? Do you see him resigning? How is this going to play out? And how bad is the health sector and how bad has it gotten in Zambia? In Gambia, I beg your pardon.
Sorry, can you come back again?
I was asking that the health minister, there are calls for the health minister to resign. He's saying that his resignation will not change anything. Do you see him resigning? And what is the health, the state of the health sector in the Gambia?
I believe the inquiry that was already on the side of the government is calling certain stakeholders, I will call them, into for question. And part of them, example, is the Pharmacy Council of the Gambia, and then the Medical Drug Control Board. Also, we knew that there are certain recalls done by the state of all the drugs that are imported into the country from this Indian company that was manufacturing. So beside that, we also know that the state has allocated some money from what the sources, the press release that came in yesterday. It was about $1 million. To a lot of parliamentarians, this was it's not good enough. $1 million in the Gambia, it's about $1 million in the Gambia is about $10,000. If you want to spread this among 70 families, it's like you're not giving them anything in a way, but government is trying to show their interest or their grievances or solidarity with these families. And the Minister of Gender and Children has been tasked to lead that delegation to visit each of the families and extend government solidarity with them, while they ask for patients to continue their investigations to get to the bottom of the issues. So there is an action going on the side of state, but there is also a huge pressure coming from the civil society groups and the civilian population for something to be done to get to the bottom of this. And I think so far, we are still yet to see, for example, what the population are demand. We are still yet to see any pharmaceutical company, for example, being called out in a way, for example, having their license suspended or having them arrested, for importing in poisonous drugs that led to the death. So this is where the bone of contention is, and the parliament, the inquiry that the parliament is hoping to run will probably help them to bring some answers that the state is not providing.
Well, I also want you to, paint a very clear picture on the health sector in the Gambia. There have been mentions that it is in a deplorable state. So can you clarify exactly what the situation is like in Gambia with regards to health?
Sorry, can you come again?
I'm asking for some clarity on the health sector in the Gambia. There have been insinuations that it is in a terrible state. So do you agree with that, or would you say that it's not as bad as it has been portrayed?
Well, the thing is there is a total, I would say, there is a total confusion right now. On the one hand, the states is seem to be acting to resolve this issue. But for the on the other hand, for example, the families of these lost kids are also mobilizing themselves to probably start a lawsuit. We've also seen lawyers who've come on and then they're offering their services to support these families to go to court and seek compensation or demand some answers from the state. And I think it's all because of government's, I wouldn't call it inaction now, but it was more like a very late action that they've begun doing and putting the cart before the horse. In some instance, for example, when the president came out with how with his first statement, what he said was we do not have this situation. And when he came the second time, people were not with the public statement, but with a press release, the actions that were outlined was more comforting, and a lot of people's reaction was that that should have been the starting point, to say social licenses have been suspended and inquiry has been established. They are recalling the drugs, rather than like in the first statement where he said that the figures are not that different from the normal mortality figures we used to have for children, even in the normal years. So some found this to be very insensitive on the side of the president, and I think they were trying to make some amends as to how they can be more sensitive to this situation. So it's a full-blown crisis right now. The police are inquiring, the state is inquiring, and the parliament is also, the select committee on health is also inquiring. So at the end of the day, I don't know where all these three approaches are going to converge, but at some point, you definitely have or expect a solution in a way that people will be held accountable for this loss. Because the population is demanding that it cannot go without somebody being punished. And the state now has the responsibility to do that punishment. But how they want to do that is probably to provide justification for this kind of punishment if they're going to do it. And that is the probability. If they're going to do it, how are they going to get it? So it means people that just have to allow them to do the investigation.
All right, Mr. Kamara.
And while the parliament also is trying to be, because as people's representative, they believe they shouldn't just
all right, Mr. Kamara,
doing much. So they have to also.
In the interest of time, I think we can just quickly leave it here. These conversations have to continue, and we hope that these parents find justice and, of course, the answers that they seek as quickly as possible. Thanks for your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.